Hey, Joe.
Hello, Gloria. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Were you traveling?
Uh, no, well, it was my mother's birthday,
Oh,
uh,
that's right. Yeah.
her 102nd birthday.
Wow. Where does she live?
She lives in Alabama.
Gosh, that's fabulous. Is she independent or she have lived in
Well, she's at home. We have full 24-hour sitters,
care?
but
Yeah.
she's with it. She just, you know, uh, more physically, uh, uh, her mind is fine. She's just slow, a little slower than usual.
I want to tell you about a book I'm reading. Hold on one second, real quick. I'm reading A Promised Land by Barack Obama, and he's talked about visiting his grandmother. She passed away the night that he won the election, but she said he said he remembers her talking to him about the aging process. And he said, you know, what's really interesting, he says, inside your body you feel like it's the same,
Right.
but the outside is not.
Uh-huh.
Mind, you feel like your mind is, well, people like your mom that have has her mind
Yeah.
is the same, but your changes are on the your physical part of your body you have no control over.
Right. Yeah. Paul's reading it now. I bought it for myself, but I'm waiting till he's done.
I'm
Uh,
really enjoying it. He's such a good. He does the narration, and it just does a great job with
oh,
it.
so you're listening to it.
I'm listening. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
mean. I meant listen. Yeah, I've got Audible,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's the way I can get through books a lot quicker.
Uh-huh. That's probably a good idea. It probably is the kind of book you'd want to listen to.
Yeah, his voice is. You know, he doesn't miss a beat when he reads, and
No.
um, you know, um, um, Michelle did not want him to run for anything. She
Right.
hates politics.
Right.
She hates it.
Right.
Hello, Pete.
Hey, Pete. How are you?
He's got his voice
Audio.
muted.
Mute. You're muted.
There you go.
There
There
you
we
go.
go.
You look festive.
I am. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Mm. Uh,
Yeah, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. I
It's,
look.
it's, I'm just now got to where he was elected, and I'm really was interested. His background is interesting, but his decisions on why he should run and for the different offices, and he just kind of fell into it. I mean, he was not even finished his term as a senator, as you
Right.
know. Things just happen. But I'm really interested in his. Oh, he talked about the Oval Office. He said it's just that desk was a gift of Queen Victoria, and it has all kinds of little nooks and crannies in it, and they resurrected it from a ship that had been sunk.
Wow. Oh, really? It had sunk?
Very
That's
interesting. Yeah.
interesting. That's
I,
interesting.
so I imagine we'll get a lot of little tidbits about his view of the presidency and the office, et cetera, that kind of thing. I'm
Right.
looking forward to the part when he's president. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. That'll be interesting. Hey, Lyle.
Hello, Gloria. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Good. I believe that's the Resolute desk.
Is that what it's called? It
Yep.
Resolute.
Resolute.
Very famous desk.
Yeah. I imagine he'll give a lot of little insights that you wouldn't otherwise know about in his book. I haven't just now getting to it. You probably heard just now getting to his presidency. Oh, by the way, I just realized I'm Peggy on the screen there. Uh, this is my wife's computer. So in case you get confused, I have not changed my sex.
Okay. We remember you. It's been 2 months for me, but I remember. Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jeff, Doug,
Hello, Doug.
Hey, Jim. Hey, everyone. Chris.
Who all's here now? Got Jim, Lino. Hello, Lino. Chris Tardio, Charles Barrett. Okay. We're still waiting on who? Eric Clifford. He's a new board member, by the way, Gloria. His name is
Right,
Eric.
yeah, okay.
You haven't met him yet, yeah.
Hey, are you all able to hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sound good?
I just sent Eric Clifford to join us. Someone's microphone is reverbing back into the speaker.
Eric Clifford's still not here yet.
Here he comes now. Looks like he's on, but he's having trouble connecting to audio.
I might suggest you do the opening, and Eric should be on by the time we get done.
Well, I can do that. I just can't introduce the board member. He's not on yet. We have a short agenda, so it shouldn't take that long.
He's on now.
Eric, are you with us? Okay,
He's on.
okay,
Mute.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. Yes, I'm on.
good. Welcome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 15th meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Joe Dugman. I'm joined tonight by the following board members: Pete Zabasky, our vice chairman, Gloria Sternberg, Chris Tardio, Eric Clifford, and myself. We have also attending Jim Hunt, our mayor, Louise Bryan, commissioner, Edie Glazer, our city recorder, and I believe there's somebody else I'm missing, leaving out. I think it's, give me a minute.
Beth's on there.
Yeah, Beth Reardon, our city manager. Thank you. There are two applications on the agenda this evening, and each applicant is here because their request for a building permit's been denied, and they are here to appeal. It's the responsibility of this board to hear your appeal and determine if there's a compelling reason that would allow the board to grant your request, while at the same time protecting the intent and integrity of the city ordinances. The board can only hear what's been published in your appeal. If the board grants approval, it will be specific to your request, and you must comply with all other regulations and requests of the city building inspector. Our procedure this evening will be as follows. The city building inspector, Lyle Patterson, will introduce each item. The applicant or their representative may present the appeal, and when doing so, please introduce yourself for the record. There'll be time for the board to ask questions, and then we'll solicit any comments from anyone in attendance. Please introduce yourself. I'll close off the discussion from the public, and the board members will deliberate in open forum. Board members may choose to have additional questions of the applicant. A member will then make a motion. There'll be a second required, and the entire board will vote. Requires a majority for this appeal to be granted. If your appeal is granted, your yard sign must be removed, and you must pull a permit within a year. If it's denied, we ask you to remove your yard sign. If your appeal is deferred, we ask you to keep your yard sign up. As board members, we each have familiarized ourselves with the application. We've reviewed your submitted materials and may decide this if necessary. I'll ask the board members now, are there any conflicts?
No.
There do not appear to be any, so we have a quorum. Mr. Patterson, would you like to proceed with the first applicant?
I would be happy to. Thank you. I would like to add before I start, we're using.
Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing, I meant to introduce Doug Berry, our city attorney as well. Thank you.
I'd like to mention we're using an automatically transcribed service called Otter. So I'm going to ask everyone if they would please speak up clearly and do your best not to talk over someone else so we can have a more accurate transcription. And please keep yourself muted other than the board members until you're asked to unmute by the chairman. The applicants have supplied thumbnails, and if you'll call those out to me, I will get to those as quickly as I can. First item under old business, the application of Jerry 213 Paddock Lane for a variance permitting the construction of a new single-family home. The replacement of a residential structure with a new residential structure is permitted in the zoning ordinance, provided that no pre-existing non-conforming use, structure, and/or variance from the provisions of the zoning ordinance will be extended closer to the property line by reason of construction of such a new structure. The building permit has been denied for the following reasons: house is over allowed footprint, house is over FAR, house is outside building setbacks and rear. Staff recommends approval. Catherine Sloan, I believe you're representing, you are up.
Yes, hi Lyle. Good evening, everyone. This is Catherine Sloan. I'm the architect for the Hancocks. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, thank you. We are back tonight. I'll give a brief overview for anyone who may not have been on the call last month. This is a new construction house. There is currently a small rental house that is in poor disrepair, and it is not of historical significance. We went before the historical board and they approved the design and were pleased with it, and thought that it fit in well with the neighborhood. We are working hard to fit this into the fabric of the street, as far as going with a style that looks like it's always been there, original to Belle Meade, and in a similar scale to the houses on the street. Last month, I believe there was a little bit of confusion that I wanted to clear up tonight. The concern was that it was too big from the street, too close to the rear setback, and some people felt the house was too big. So Lyle, if you could scroll down just a little bit, I've done a few illustrations. There's one of the streetscape. Our house is the one, obviously, that's the rendering. If you scroll down a bit more, there's one zoomed in. That one, thank you. So I have decreased the footprint and the FAR, and I've pulled it off of the rear property line a bit more. So we're now 20 feet off of the rear property line. The footprint is down to 3359, and you can see how that compares to the neighbors on either side. So we're within keeping of those, really close to those footprints. The FAR, we decreased by 300 and got that down a little bit. The main thing I wanted to clear up, Lyle, if you're able to scroll down a little bit more, there's a chart right there. Yes, on A1. Okay, so that shows the allowable on the new. Actually, sorry, can you go to A2, Lyle, the next one? And down right there, A3, where it says area calculations. I wanted to clarify last time. So the total under roof square footage is 5042. The FAR actually is 4825. I wanted to clarify though, the square footage of the living space is just that it's 3991, that total main house heated. I think last month, some people felt that the overall square footage was the 5,000. That's the total under roof, which includes the attic and the garage space. So our heated and cooled square footage is the 3991. So we have, again, we pulled it off the rear property line 3 more feet, but we did not shift it forward. We squeezed in the house a bit, three more feet from the rear, and we're able to get off the rear property line without pushing it forward. Drop the FAR, drop the footprint, and again, the images where you can see all the houses on the street. Just wanted to illustrate through that. If you're able to go back up, Lyle, please. Yes, so you can see on those that from the street, the house actually looks a good bit narrower from the ones on either side. So we really are considering that and, making every attempt for this not to be too large of a house. That's all I have.
Catherine, we have one board member that was not here last time, Gloria Sternberg. So you might want to give a little more detail, if you will, please.
I actually was here. This was 2 months ago. Correct?
No, it was last month. It was deferred 2 months ago.
Yeah, I deferred it.
Okay.
I was the one who deferred it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
All right. If you're comfortable,
It was
Gloria,
October. I mean, September.
September, we were scheduled to come before the board. Then,
Oh, it was deferred. Okay, correct. It was deferred. Right.
Yeah, we never came in September. The
Oh,
first time.
okay. That's
why.
correct. Okay, go ahead then. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, what were you asking for more detail on?
It's up to Gloria. Because I think the board members, the rest of the board members heard this presentation last month. And I'm personally familiar with the details. We may ask more questions, but I just want to know, Gloria, if you'd like more of a information from the architect. If not, that's fine.
I'll ask Lyle how he came to the recommendation of approval. That'd be great.
Well, in my humble opinion, this house, they've made a very great effort in keeping this house in the building envelope in the front and on the sides. And I'll scroll to the, you'll notice here, I'll try to zoom in on this. The front is within the front setback. The sides are within their side setbacks. There's a 30-foot yard on each side of the home. They're over in the rear. These lots are very difficult to build on because they're small.
Yeah.
And sometimes the front and the rear setbacks cross over each other. And if they don't, they're still practically unbuildable. Most of the houses on this street are over their setbacks as well as the rear setback, the side setbacks and the rear setback, and they're over on footprint. So taking a look at all of those homes and the challenge of the smaller lot, I recommended that this was to be written as a variance due to that. So that's why staff recommended approval. It was in keeping with the other homes on the street.
Got it. Thank you.
A few other things I mentioned last month. We designed the house as a 1.5 story instead of a full 2-story house. Again, just to try to keep the massing as small as possible. If you look at the floor plan, there really is not, there's not a formal dining room. There's not a den. That 2-car garage, unfortunately, eats up quite a bit of the FAR and the square footage. But we have made every effort to design it just as, concisely as possible. The style is it's a Dutch colonial, which is really in keeping with the neighborhood. Taking every measure to do an architecturally correct, historically accurate. The roof line and the style is actually similar to the addition to the Bellmead Country Club. So we feel like it really fits in well.
Board members have any questions of Catherine right now? Catherine, anybody else to speak on behalf of the applicant besides yourself?
No, sir, just me tonight.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to open this up now for the public for their comments. Who would like to speak at this time?
Hey, this is Charles Barrett. May I go?
Go right ahead, Charles.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I won't take long. I'm at 211 Paddock Lane, and I have a couple of questions. One on the issue is not the front of the house. It's not the sides of the house. From my perspective, the issue is the back. It's that 20 feet. I mean, my house has 40 feet, and I know how close that is to the fence line. And if you go all the way to move that in 20 more feet, that is a big difference. It sets a precedent moving forward that just raises, well, what does that mean for everybody going forward? I think that has to be considered. I mean, I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but that's a lot. I mean, it's the back that is the concern from our perspective. On the square footage, I still think it's a lot of house. It's a beautiful home, and as I've told Catherine, but I mean, with the screened-in porch, with you know, with the basement that doesn't even count. It's just a lot. But with all that being said, our concern is the rear. And what I would like to ask the board, assume this gets blessed, and it goes forward. What this to me is, I mean, we've all had these rules on us on this street in this area for a while, and we've all sort of played by them. To me, unless I'm wrong, this is a pretty big change. What does this mean for the rest of us going forward? How does this change the game? And I think that's a fair question.
Well, Mr. Barrett, we're here to listen to your comments. I don't have an answer to your question. I think we'll have to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
This is Catherine. May I respond to one thing?
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you. As far as the garage being 20 feet off of the rear property line, two things. You know, the way to avoid that would be to move the garage to the side of the house and have a front facing garage, which I know front facing is not ideal. And then we would be over on the side setbacks, and it would be a wider house and larger from the street. So we chose to, you know, do it on the back. We're 20 feet off the back, whereas the neighbor to the left is 12 feet off of the back. And Lyle, if you can scroll up just a hair, there's one on Scotland Place as well. That's about 7 feet from the back. So, you know, we hate to have to do that, but our hands are just kind of tied with trying to stay within the side setbacks, which we thought was more important so the house wouldn't look as large from the street. Also, Lyle, if you're able to go to the rear elevation, the garage was designed with a really, if you'll go down, please. The opposite way. A few more. Okay, right there. The bottom drawing that says rear elevation on A7, that's the garage. So you can see we've designed it just as short and, you know, non-imposing as possible from the rear. It has a 1-story roof, and the lowest pitch we can do is a 612. So we've done everything we can to make it, you know, it doesn't have living space above it and dormers and a guest suite or anything that would make it, you know, larger than it absolutely has to be. But that's the main reason it's on the back instead of on the side, because we wanted to avoid the front facing doors and making it wider from the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here from the public that would like to have a comment or two?
Joe, this is Joel Gallanter, if I could go next.
Go right ahead, Mr. Gallagher.
Thank you. I live next door at the 215 Paddock Lane property. I had a couple of questions for Catherine, but then also one point. Our rear setback is actually is not 12 feet. It is 22 feet at that corner. So this house is 2 feet closer to the setback. So one question is, where did that 12-foot come from? Because it's actually 22. And then the other question is, can you walk through how you did shrink the house from last month? I think you've done a good job of shrinking it somewhat as a compromise. I'm just curious as to what you've done. If you could kind of just talk through that.
Sure, thank you. Yes, the 12 feet came off of the Metro property map. So not sure what the discrepancy is there. As far as how I shrunk it, I
just real quick on that point, sorry to stop, but it is 22. I mean, our plans, which were built, this addition was built about 12 years ago, show 22 feet, and I've measured it since last month. The 12 just seemed odd to me, so I actually went out and did measure it, and it was 22 feet.
Okay, so yeah, the Metro maps were just off, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. So I squeezed the, you know, I kind of just took here and there. I pushed starting from the back, I pushed the lawn storage in a foot. I pushed the garage in about 18 inches, not toward the front, you know, pushed it in as far as taking space out of it. And then I pushed in, you know, about a foot, 6 inches, 8 inches, kind of in every room, just tightening up just as much as possible. Taking 18 inches out of the family room, pushing that rear wall in. And then 6 inches each out of the fringe entry, the master, the closet, the master bath, kind of as you work your way forward. So that cut down on the footprint and the square footage, and then the upstairs squeezed in as well. So that made the FAR smaller on the first and second floors.
Okay. And then, so just to ask the question, how far does that lawn storage, is it existing now? Is it about 3 feet?
It's 3 feet deep.
Okay. So if you took that off additionally, then you would be within the existing kind of precedential setback.
Yes, unfortunately, they just really, they do their own lawn, so they just really have to have a place for, lawnmower, things like that. So we've squeezed that in just as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak from the public?
Sure. This is Ed Kelly, and I live directly across from the property at 210. And Catherine, thank you for trying to get this shrunk down. So we really appreciate your efforts there. My concern is, and there's some others on here as well, if we do this on a case-by-case basis, and this is at, let's say 8 feet or 10 feet, the tear down behind me on Scotland, we know that person's going to say, okay, 213, they're at this, far back from the setback. So we want the same thing. So we want to put a big house on that lot. And the house on Leek right behind this property at 213, when they tear that down, I'm sure they're going to say, hey, if this property at 213 did it, it's just more of the precedent. It's not the house. The house is beautiful. And I'm sure the neighbors are great too. It's what only my concern is on the precedent itself, right? And what's going to happen, and is it going to end up looking more like LaSalle in the courts, right? Where we've got really big houses kind of pushing the envelope as much as you can on these lots. It's going to kind of take away from the charm. So I did look at this house before the Hancocks looked at it. But the property, I knew I couldn't build the kind of house that I wanted because of the way the lot was structured. So I put in an offer, talked to some architects, realized, hey, it's going to be very difficult to build on. So I completely get where they're coming from. But I didn't want to take away from the character of the neighborhood. And I'm just afraid if we set the precedent here, the people in Scotland and Leek and, all of our backdoor neighbors on these teardowns, it's going to kind of create a monster. So that's just more of a comment. That's a concern for me as someone who's lived in the neighborhood. And then I did just notice on, and Catherine, maybe you can help us on this. Are there stairs going down on the gallery? I can't even read it. I'm sorry. I'm an old man, but is there downstairs?
There's basement storage downstairs. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that going to be built out at any point, or does that have like plumbing or future, potential future use at all?
It does not have plumbing. They said they may put, some weights and work out down there, but it won't be heated and cooled, true finished out space, mainly storage, since there's not an attic, since it's the 1.5 story.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Mr. Chairman, that's it. I just had my concern, just wanted to voice that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, this is Kyle Neal on Leek Avenue, if you can hear me.
We can.
So I spoke last time, and I think it's a lot of the points you're hearing here from Mr. Kelly and Mr. Barrett, which is concern about the rear. As I live on Leek, 208 Leek Avenue, and have a corner that touches this property. As Mr. Barrett pointed out, he's about 40 feet off the line. I'm about 45, and similar to him, that I view that as not a lot of space. And so if you think about this one coming, up to about 20 feet off that line, compared to where it is today, there's just not going to be much of a yard back there. And I understand from the comments made by this group that we as a community will view each one of these on a case-by-case basis, but based on the logic that was applied last time, when we look at these on a case-by-case, it seems to tread heavily and be leaning a lot into the precedent. and how we judge a proposal, in that, is this in line with what's already been allowed? And so having heard here tonight that actually the one that was referenced last time is 12 feet out off the line, which heavily influenced the logic at that time, is not close to that, but what, 22, and that this would be the 20 feet, this would be the most aggressive move into a backyard along the street. And so I would hope this group would really consider that as you know, something distinguishing the facts here tonight from some of those that were really under consideration the last time this came up, to really think long and hard about what this would mean for the community. It sounds like it would be the most aggressive move into a backyard on the street. And what you're hearing here from the surrounding neighbors is a real concern about that. I think we all move into these streets, you know, wanting to have yards and space. And so we would really hope you guys would help us protect that and not let something be done too aggressively. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? If not, I'm going to, sorry, somebody?
This is Catherine. May I say one more thing?
Sure.
Thank you. Lyle, I definitely hear all this and appreciate it. I'm just wondering, since this is a special impact area, and since every house on the street is over in some way on footprint, side setbacks, it seems that any house that would go on this lot, and one will be built, it seems that any house that goes on this lot will be over. And this one, with the design, you know, being so thoughtful and architecturally correct and fitting into the neighborhood, I don't know. It just seems that if you look at the front and rear setbacks, there's only about 10 feet of width on the lot in which to build if you stay within the building envelope. So any house is going to be over on the rear setback and the footprint, or the side setbacks as well. Also wanted to point out the house on the corner, they have a detached garage that's 2 feet from the rear property line. So we wouldn't be the closest on the street as far as the distance from the garage to the rear property line. Lyle, am I correct in thinking that any house that goes on the lot will have to be over to be buildable?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, and that's why I felt it should be written as a variance. It's up to the board to, you know, deliberate and make determinations from that. But when I write the agenda, I look at this is definitely a challenging lot, which in my mind, when I wrote it, was a variance.
Okay.
Anybody else from the public? Catherine, you're not from the public, so I mean, you board members may have some questions of you, so there'll be another opportunity to answer questions. But anybody else from the public?
This is Joel Galter again. If I could just ask a question, is there a way to get it within, kind of on the rear side, since there is a concern about that, is there a way to get it within the 22-foot precedent on the street?
If we could, we would be happy to move it forward 2 feet. We wouldn't be any further than 209 is quite a bit further, so we wouldn't be out of that precedence.
Yeah, I mean, Catherine, I think, and I've served on the board for a long time and have been in this house, my house, for 25 years. And I understand the concerns of the neighborhood and the need to be able to have some leeway. And that's maybe why I'm a little bit more supportive of this process, because we've lived next to the house that's there for 25 years and are very excited about the opportunity to see it gone and something really nice built next door. But I do have a concern with just moving this house forward, because, you know, it is a bigger house, and moving it forward, I don't think is the right thing to do, but was hoping that maybe a compromise of 2 more feet to get it within the, you know, the 22-foot precedent on the rear setback could be achieved somehow. I mean, that shed is the most logical kind of thing, but.
This is Stephanie Gallanter. What if you moved the shed over to the right side of the garage?
Yes, unfortunately, Lyle, if you go to the first floor plan, if you could scroll down just a little bit. Yes, unfortunately, you can see on the right side of the garage, there are 2 doors on the rear wall of the family room. That's the only visibility to the backyard, you know, to watch the children play and to get in light and views to the rear. So if we
But
put,
would that, I'm sorry, would that really block the view if you just switched it around? Would it block the view? I mean, like, you could still have your bump out instead of having a solid wall there per se.
we could figure that out. And if that would be a compromise that would help, then be able to build the house, we definitely could figure out how not to have the lawn storage on the back. Sure.
It was just a suggestion. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public? If not, I'm going to close the public portion off, and I'm going to stick by that suggestion. Board members, I have a question of Lyle. It seems like it's been mentioned multiple times that this house is creating some kind of precedent by being 20 rather than 22 feet. What did someone mention on Scotland? Is there a closer house?
Catherine did.
Is this the house? Lyle, can you tell us about this house on Scotland Place?
I believe Catherine can address it better than I can.
Okay.
Yes, according to Metro Maps, there is the detached garage. It's the house on the left that is 7 feet from the property line. And then the one on the right is 20 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's the one on the corner back on Paddock that is about 2 feet.
Can you show us that, Lyle?
And again, that's according to the Metro property maps.
Okay, board members?
That's not a garage.
So how deep is the lawn storage unit?
It's 3 feet deep.
3 feet.
It's like I said, it's really just a place to put their lawnmower is the goal there.
And I'd like to ask Doug Barry to address the precedent issue.
Get myself unmuted there. What I usually tell boards of zoning appeals about precedent is that every piece of property is unique. But I will say this street, it looks like there are a lot of lots that are similar in size. And at one time it was a so-called special impact area. And I'm assuming that was almost an ordinance finding that all of these lots were going to be built built outside of setbacks and other of the standards. But yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly something that the next person could cite if it was to agree, particularly if it was a big deviation from the standards, because these lots appear to be, largely the same, almost square, slightly rectangular, about the same size, except for the large one at the end of the street. So, I don't think you're stuck with it like you are in other legal contexts, but it'll be an argument that'll be made by somebody who'll come back in for sure. So, but every piece of property is unique. There are unique circumstances. I'm not familiar with the street. I may have driven down it 100 times, but I know can't put it in front of me at this moment. But I think you have to consider what the neighbors have said and what the applicant's response has been on this issue of the rear setback. That falls under the heading of, is there a detriment to the public good from granting the variance, and also whether or not the proposed construction is in harmony with the other houses on the street. That's how I see that relating to those issues. And that's not for me to rule on, but just that's where I see that as being relevant. And yeah, sure, there's some precedential effect of all of our decisions.
Catherine, will you walk us through what the Historical Zoning Commission took into consideration when they approved? Did they approve this on first reading or not? Is that correct?
They did. They were very pleased with the design. They liked the style. They liked that it looked like a Bellmead original home. They liked the massing and the scale of it, as far as being a 1.5 story versus a big 2-story. They liked that the dining room on the right was pulled down to just 1 story to break up the scale and massing. They appreciated the materials that are going to be used, and just the thought that went behind making it just look like a traditional Bellmead, historically accurate cottage. They really didn't have any suggestions or comments, tweaks, changes. They all were happy with it.
Well, thank you. I'd like to hear from any other board members that have any thoughts about this.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, and this is for Doug or Lyle or Catherine or anybody, does the Historical Zoning Commission consider the fit of the house both onto the lot and within the neighboring houses, or is it just looking at the design of the house?
That is part of their consideration, yes. They're not as concerned about setbacks as they are about scale, ratio, and matching with other houses on the street.
But it's still part of the overall consideration they make?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Then let me ask one more question, Pete, then I'll cede to you. Lyle, you recommended approval as a variance. Tell me or tell the board what about the lot do you think qualifies it under that part of the code?
Well, if you'll notice here on this screen that I've just pulled up, I'll try to annotate on here quickly. Here is the rear setback of 60 feet. And then here is the front setback. Here is the 85-foot rear setback. So between these two lines here is where you can get up to a height of 45 feet. Between these two lines here is where you can go to 25. You can see there's not much square footage to put a house in here and keep it within the setbacks. So when I see this lot, and we have this all over Bellmead, when the building envelope is practically unbuildable, it can be considered, in my mind, a variance, just as if a lot had an irregular shape.
What about the height of the house as far as the current regulations are concerned, Lyle?
Well, Catherine, what's the height of the house? Is it 30 feet?
We're at 30. That's shown on the front elevation,
Okay.
which is a 6.
What can be built? How high can it be built?
You can go to 40.
So we're 10 feet under on the height.
Chris, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Pete?
Yeah. Well, as I talked about last month, my concern is the floor area ratio and violating that. Just to be clear that, as far as this lot being a variance, it would have to be approved as a variance to allow the applicant to build a house that falls within FAR, which would be 4,193 or something like that, 4,000, little less than 4,200 square feet. So it would even have to be a variance to build a 4,200 square foot house. I do think the lot qualifies the variance because of size. I'm not sure about detriment to the public good, but I was still in favor of a house outside the setbacks, but within FAR. some things that were mentioned in the meeting by, I think both Catherine and last month by Lyle, is that the other houses are in violation. Do we have any proof of that? Square footage or FAR calculations on the other houses? Because when I ride by, they look like they may be in some cases certainly in some cases outside the setbacks, but I don't see any of them approaching 5,000 square feet. Or I'm not sure those houses are outside of FAR, even though at the time they were built or expanded on, there was a special impact, so they would be allowed more leeway than today. But where do we get that? What are the square footage of the other houses in the neighborhood on that street next door to them, or even across the street? And what's the FAR on those houses? Has anybody done that work? Or are we just saying that?
There's no way to know what FAR is without having a set of drawings or going into an attic, because FAR would be in the attic as well. But I actually did a little research on my own and went to Zillow. Now Zillow, you can take it for what it's worth. And I looked up a few of the houses. 209 is 5293 square feet, according to Zillow.
Can you show us that, Lyle?
No.
Can you show us those houses?
It would take me some time. I'd have to leave this.
No, I mean, you're on the drawing,
I don't have 209.
Oh, okay.
Lyle, there's a picture of 209 on that streetscape that I did. Yes, right there. It's the second from the right.
This one, okay.
Yes.
211 is 4391. 210 is 4891, and that's as far as I got. I was just curious just before the meeting.
And this is Catherine. May I point out on Zillow, that's the heated and cooled square footage. Our heated and cooled is the 3991, not the 5,000. The 5,000 on ours includes the garage and attic, which would not be included on Zillow's calculations.
So, Lyle, you're saying 209 is 5,300 square feet?
5293. I'm guessing that some of that is in a basement. That house does have a basement
Right.
in it.
The full basement. Yeah, I don't believe any of the houses on that street is over 5,000 square feet unless you include a basement. And this house at the Haddock's house, the applicant's house, is going to have a basement as well. So that might get it up to 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. I don't know, but I think we're making comments that influence the board that we don't know are accurate. We don't know what the square footage of those houses are. So, and I do think that there's been a lot of neighbors that are concerned. If I was the applicant, I guess I would be concerned that the neighbors are concerned about building a house that's larger than the other houses on the street. But again, my issue is the floor area ratio. If this house is approved, I would suggest that, Lyle, that you go to back to the commissioners and try to change the floor area ratio so you can put bigger houses on small lots. Because my understanding, one of the purposes in the zoning code is to keep from building big houses on small lots. So that's, I'm just repeating a lot of what I said last week, except last week I didn't hear anything confirming that those houses are over on the neighboring houses are over on square footage or on FAR. I just heard it said that they're over on square footage and over on FAR. And I just wondered if that was just our best guess, or if we knew that for a fact, because that could influence a decision. Could influence my decision.
This is Catherine. May I respond to that, please?
Go right ahead, Catherine.
Thank you. Looking at the drawing that Lyle has pulled up, if you look at our footprint, which is pretty close to the footprint of the houses on either side, the FAR, it's correct. We can't calculate without going in and measuring the house and the attic space. But if you look at our footprint, and our FAR is 4825, you can see the footprint of the neighboring houses, and then look at the pictures of the houses. You can see the second story space that they have that's a lot wider than ours. So, I mean, we can't do it accurately, but it just shows that the FAR would be over as well based on the footprint, and then looking at the picture of the house and seeing the second floor space, that it's some of it's attic space and some of it's livable space with the dormers. But you can just tell by the illustration. That's where we made the assumption that they are quite a bit over as well. I would like to say we're at 3991. The basement, like I said, that's going down just to storage space. It's not heated and cooled. It's not finished. So it wouldn't be anything that would count in square footage. They might put some exercise equipment down there, but it's really just for some, from some unheated storage space, since they don't have an attic. So it really would be, that 3991 square feet.
If we're looking at Zillow, though, they won't know whether it's heated or cooled. Plus, I don't have a problem with the footprint of the house, and the house on 211, which I think was this house. It doesn't look to me like there's as much room on a second story as there's presented for the house that you're building. But again, I don't know. I didn't make the comment that there are other houses on the street or over in footprint or over in square footage and over in FAR. Someone else did. I was just curious where we got that information. And what I'm hearing is we don't know. We're just assuming it because of a footprint or because of Zillow or but we really don't know if they are over.
Well, it appears that Pete, you mentioned the second story. It appears the house on the left, which is 215 Paddock, this appears that the second story is larger or as large as the house in question, from my perspective.
And the one to the right, you can see they have a second story where the dormers are, and then to the right of that, and then to the right of that again where the garage doors are.
Well, again, we don't know. We're just guessing.
Any other board members have any comments?
I have a quick question about FAR, and I know that we had done an ordinance back before I came on the board about these half-acre lots. And I know that once it switched to FAR, but my question is the calculation for lots less than 40,000 feet equivalent to what was originally in that ordinance? Lyle, maybe you can answer that. I don't know. I mean, was it calculated in a similar way to take into account the smaller half-acre lots?
It's relatively close. That was volume. And
Yeah.
we switched from volume to FAR we'd get 10 different answers on calculations for volume. And this way it was easier for everyone to understand FAR, a homeowner, a real estate agent, but it was relatively close. Now volume, like FAR, doesn't include any room underneath the first floor. So basements are free. I think that's what the house that was mentioned, 209, I believe, that's why they finished out the basement below, because they were under the volume restriction and they put a lot of the room down in the basement. But they were relatively close.
Okay, any board members have any other comments? If not, I'm going to ask, does anybody have a motion?
Let me advise whoever makes the motion, whichever you decide to do, to please state the basis for your motion relative to the variance standards and the evidence you've heard. Lyle gave a summary of his recommendation, sort of in that, doesn't have to be the same recommendation, same decision, but same sort of structure. If you think it's entitled to a variance, why? If you think it's not, state why.
Well, why don't we, since it sounds like we're a little stumped, why don't we talk about it amongst ourselves in this portion? I mean, I'll be the first to wade into the water here.
Eric, are you speaking?
No,
Sorry.
this is Chris. I'm sorry.
Chris, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sort of struggling, not necessarily with the first part of the variance section about establishing that the lot has some exceptional peculiarities that make it difficult to build on. I'm struggling with the second part, that this relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. And that may be or may not be what you all are struggling with. I just don't know. I'm almost persuaded by, seems like a nearly unanimous opinion from the neighbors that there will be substantial detriment to at least the public good on that street. So I know I'm talking stream of conscious, but that's where I'm struggling.
I would agree with that. I understand the front and side setbacks are pretty, make the house feel appropriate from the street. But the fact that the neighbors are concerned about setting a precedent when there clearly are other houses that are going to be torn down and rebuilt, and it's going to come back. This is going to come back to us in the future. I don't know if the other houses they all have garages on this street. Is that a consideration to not have a garage? I mean, I know I don't know if there was any discussion about that last time. But
You have to have a garage. It's in our ordinance.
Yeah.
Gloria, if you look at 215, the garage is on the left facing the street. 211, the garage is on the right facing the street.
Okay.
If you go down the street, you'll see other garages that face the street.
Right.
Their garages are in the back, which is something we've always preferred.
Right, exactly. Because then it's hard to get around that. I mean, we can pick up to 3 feet.
Hey, I've got a question for Doug Barry. Doug, is there a legal definition of detriment to public good, or is that left to interpretation of the board?
I would say that's left to the interpretation of the board based on the testimony you hear, but the facts that are presented and the testimony you hear from the neighbors. So you have to ask yourself, is this credible? Is it even if true, does this really constitute the harm to the public good? But no, I think there probably is a legal definition in some case somewhere, but you know what you need to know tonight, I think, to judge it based on what you've heard. You consider this harm to the public good, and then the issues that have been raised about it's out of harmony because its setback is too close to the rear line, and also the danger of setting precedent in this neighborhood where you've got a lot of smaller lots. It looks like to me, I don't know, I wasn't here, I shouldn't speculate, but it looks like by some dispensation under an earlier ordinance, they were allowed, all the houses were allowed to be built at least outside of setback. Now, if Pete's correct, I think that there's no way to determine the FAR on the fly here tonight. But I think you have to just ask yourself whether or not this house being, I gather, a little larger and a little more toward the rear than some of the others. Is this a detriment to the public good that would prevent them from being granted a variance?
And just to clarify, detriment to public good versus harmony, or keeping with the neighborhood, can you make the distinction between
I think
those?
they're the same. I think they're the flip sides of the same question.
Okay.
Detriment to the public good is language out of the state statute. Harmony with the neighborhood is a Belmead ordinance term. Like I said, I think they're two sides of the same coin, honestly, Eric.
That's helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Was that Eric or Chris talking?
Sorry, that was Eric.
Okay. Eric, I want to refer you to the Historic Zoning Commission policy and justification. It says the general approach to new construction is for it to be compatible and adjacent dwellings with adjacent dwellings and of the highest quality possible. Compatible means reinforcing the typical features that building display along the street and in the vicinity, such as similar roof forms, materials, window and door sizes and placement, porch size and locations and foundation heights. That's the policy of the Historic Zoning Commission, which was met by this particular design. They, as Catherine indicated, they took into consideration scale, height, lot placement, orientation to the street, roof shape and pitch. These are all of the criteria that the Historic Zoning Commission considered. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that there's been the concerns I've heard from the public relate to the back, and we're talking about a 2-foot difference. The shed 2 feet closer to the back line, and the gentleman on Leek Avenue is actually not in the back, he's on the corner. So I'm trying to understand, and this is more rhetorical than anything else, what is the concern about this house? What is the detriment that people are talking about? That's my question, is to the board.
What I heard the neighbors say is that the house is going to appear to be larger than the other houses, and it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. That's what I heard them say.
I don't think anybody said that this time. That was mentioned last time, and we also were the misunderstanding about the size of the house. We now know the footprint of this house is smaller than the house to the right and the house to the left.
Right.
And if you look at the pictures that have been presented on these, just below that, the footprint drawings, you see and proportionally how that house fits in with the house on the right and the house on the left. And that's exactly what the Historical Zoning Commission took into consideration.
Joe, those are excellent points. When I think about this, this decision, I think Chris is right. You go to the first step of, does it qualify for a variance, which I think we're all in unanimity on that decision. It does qualify for a variance. And then I think that the point made by Pete was an excellent point, which we were all focused on the setbacks, and we spent a lot of time talking about that, but we didn't spend a lot of time talking about FAR or footprint, and we really can't talk about FAR because we don't have the information. We do have the footprint information, and it's staring us in the face, and it's consistent. And we have the visual on the second floor architecture. And if you look at the visual there, I think Catherine did a nice job of pointing out that you can make a reasonable assumption that the FAR is likely in keeping. Gloria made a great point about could in the ordinance we have to have further within the ordinance. We can't, as I understand it, we either prefer not to or we cannot have front facing garages like the one to the right. but we do have precedent to the right. So they could consider that, but I don't think that's the preference. And then on the left, we see a setback that's 22 feet, and we're at 20. And I think a concession was made by Catherine to solve that by moving the storage shed. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve as drawn, subject to moving the storage shed to solve the problem. And I don't know if they have to come back for that or not. Doug, that's probably a question for you. But let me know how to state that, and I will, and we'll move forward.
Well, I think if I understand your motion, Eric, it's to grant the variance because, as you've stated, that you believe that the lot is unusual in terms of size, and that you believe that the variance can be granted without detriment to public good. But your condition on that would be that the tool shed be eliminated. Yeah, you can place conditions on a grant of a variance. I don't think this differs so materially from the proposal that would have to be re-advertised and come back. That's just my call. And I think that it wasn't like we talked about last time, that moving the whole thing forward. So tell me again, or tell the board, don't tell me, tell the board what you mean by your condition.
My condition would be to move the tool shed to somewhere that solves for less than 20 feet, that gets it to 22, consistent with the neighbor, and meets with Lyle's approval, if that's allowed.
I think that would be appropriate condition, if that's your motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Gloria.
Okay, any more discussion on this motion? If not, I'll call for the question. Let's have a roll call vote. Eric?
Aye.
Gloria?
Aye.
Pete?
Nay.
And Chris?
I vote aye. And can I say why as some commentary?
Sure.
And I made some notes here, and I wanted to make it clear why I'm voting aye. I think that the Historical Zoning Commission approving the design in the house is important to me in deciding that the house remains in harmony with the neighborhood or the street, whatever geographical area you want to compare it to. Then my second note here is that as I read the code, it's substantial detriment to the public good. And while there may be some unhappiness with how close it is to the back, which may be a little better with the condition, I don't think it's substantially detrimental to the public good. And three, just to address one of the statements from a neighbor that this is sort of a slippery slope. That doesn't. I just want to make it clear that I don't think by approving this particular lot we're setting any precedent. We can consider it, but we're free the next time to consider the testimony and make a different decision. So that's why I'm voting yes.
And my vote is aye as well. So, okay, the motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. I appreciate your input, everybody. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda under new business, the application of Knoll 305 Linwood Boulevard for a variance conditional use permitting construction of a swimming pool. Building permit has been denied for the following reason. Swimming pools require BZA approval. Staff recommends approval. And whoever is representing you are up, and I will share my screen.
Hey guys, you all hear me all right?
We can, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, so my name's Lee Knoll. My parents, Lee and Emily, they live at the property at 305 Linwood. I'm not an architect, so forgive me. These aren't my plans. We're using Stephen Wells. I'm sure many of you know. I know he and Lyle know each other well, but he's got a great set of plans here for us. This is something that they have thought about doing for quite a while, putting this pool in. And it appears the part of the pool and the decking is outside of that building envelope. So if I'm not mistaken, I think that is the reason for the variance request. So I'm happy to, help answer any questions that you all have, and definitely appreciate all of your time here tonight for this variance. So Lyle knows a good bit about it, and I think the plans here, I think it's a great layout. I think it's the ideal layout for how the house is positioned, and that back house garage in the back that you all see on the screen there. So it is that, I think they bought the place in 1976, and I don't think there's any houses around at that time. And as the lots have sold, it just ends up that the back portion of this lot, as you all can see, is just kind of an odd shape. So it does create an issue with that side setback there on the Caryopoulos' side. That's their neighbor looking to the right. So any thoughts or questions that you all have, I can pass that along to Stephen. I thought he was going to be on here tonight with us, but he was not able to join us. So that's really the gist of it.
Lyle, what is your recommendation on this applicant?
Staff recommends approval.
Can you tell us why?
Again, we have a unusual shaped lot. The house was built before the ordinance for the setbacks were in place. I think you can see here the corner of the pool is out in this one triangular area right here. So I wrote it as a variance due to the shape of the lot. And I'll zoom back out to that.
Can I ask a question, Mr.
Sure,
Chair?
Gloria, go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, what is at the bottom of the pool on the plan is that open space?
Okay, so that looks like
Where
a
the
gate.
is.
Is that the gate that you're referencing?
Yeah, but is that grass or what is that space?
Yes, ma'am. It's all grass on that kind of back left side of the lot. And I actually don't think she's going to have that gate there. Those two columns will actually be make up the entrance on the left side of the house. So that's actually not in the exact spot it will be. So that will just all be open area on that bottom side of the pool and pool decking there.
Is there any possibility of shifting the pool in that direction to get it inside the building envelope?
I don't think it's totally out of the question, but I really don't think for the layout, I don't think that will be the most visually pleasing look. I mean, with where the garage is and the house is, it seems to be kind of perfectly centered in between those two. So I think that's why Stephen Wells and his team put it like this. But I'm not saying it's out of the question, but I doubt that will be something that the homeowner will be interested in doing. But any thoughts you all have, I can pass that along to them, and we can see about that.
Lyle, can you enlarge that anymore?
Sure. You want the whole
Other way, yeah, and make it bigger. A little more. You do any more? I can't read. I didn't think that was part of the pool.
What did you want me to focus on, Pete?
I'm sorry, say again?
What did you want me to focus on?
Where the setback line cuts the corner of the pool, I didn't think that square was the pool.
It's in the top left corner, if you're talking about that
Yeah,
area.
that right there, right. Now, is that cutting through the pool? I didn't think that was part of the pool.
That
Yes.
is the water. The triangular part is the water.
What does that say? Can you read that right under that green line? What is that word?
That says, I think that says the sun deck. That'll be like the 10 or
Yeah, there you go.
10 inch
Oh,
or
it's the sun.
1 foot depth.
Yeah, is that, so that's not part of the pool, is it? You can
Right.
have a sun deck outside the building envelope.
Right.
No, so that is inside the pool. That is water in that area. That's kind of the entry to the pool that I think some folks call it a splash pad for small children and stuff like that. It's just about a foot depth. It's kind of like a giant first step into the pool, that area.
Well, does that need, is that a conditional use when it's a foot deep pool that needs approval of the board?
That's a good one, Pete. 18 inches or deeper needs approval. I don't know how the board looks at this since it's connected to the pool, so I guess this could be a pool feature since it's less than 18 inches.
So
Yeah,
it's 16 inches, correct?
Hey,
No, it's I don't think it's any. I've been told it was 1 foot, and then I was actually speaking to the pool contractor today. He was saying some folks do it even shallower than that, 8 inches or even 10 inches. I don't think it would be any more than a foot, the depth of the water there.
it actually says pool depth 1 foot to the right here.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Lee, where is the pool equipment?
Okay, so the pool equipment on this plan is actually outside of the building envelope next to the HVAC unit, as you can see there, that's been there. So if that is something that has to be addressed, I think there are other options for it. And a better place for it might actually be to the right of the chimney. So if you're looking at the back of the house, that little area that juts out, that could actually be an ideal place for it, is what we've been thinking. But on this set of plans, it is outside of the envelope there. But I do think that can be figured out pretty easily if it needs to be inside of it, if that's something that you all would want. And I think the reason Stephen put it there is because that's where the HVAC unit's always been. So maybe that was part of his thinking and putting it there. But I do think that can be adjusted.
And Lyle, the fence and surrounding the pool is not in front of the board. It's all meets code.
Correct.
Well, Lee, thank you. Does anybody else, do you have anybody else there that speaking on your behalf, or?
I do not. It's just myself, and
Okay.
I'm sort of, helping my folks organize this. And I've found them. Stephen Wells and I have done some stuff together. And he's a tremendous architect. He's done a lot of projects in and around Belmead, and the pool contractor is, I think, the best out there. And it's going to be just a simple, layout. It's going to be very nice looking. So I think everyone would be pleased with it, neighbors and anyone else. So I think it's going to be a great project.
Well, thank you. I'm going to close off the public portion and ask the board members to consider this request.
I'll speak to, I mean, it looks like there doesn't really need to be, there, it's possible there, it doesn't need to be a variance. If that's a 1 foot sun deck, I think that's correct. But the fact that the pool equipment is outside the building envelope, of course, is an issue. And I don't know if we needed to defer it for them to come back with another plan to show us where they would move it.
It won't be necessary. You want a motion?
I do, please. Thank you.
I'd make a motion to approve the plan as submitted with the exception of the pool equipment, and it needs to be moved inside the building envelope.
We can easily do that. I
Okay,
think we
thank
can-
you. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it.
Gloria seconds. Any further discussion? I'm going to call for the question. If not, Pete, how you vote?
Aye.
Gloria?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda. Oh, we got one other matter. We got to consider the minutes from the meeting of October. Has everybody seen those minutes?
Hey, do you all need me anymore? Is
No, we
that-
do not, Lee.
Lee,
Thank you.
Hey,
this is
Hey,
Jim Hunt.
thank you all very much for the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Lee, this is
Thank
Jim Hunt. You're
Thank you all.
you did a great job representing Emily and Lee, your dad.
Oh, hey, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I know they're excited about doing this and having all the grandkids over. So it's going to be great for them. So
Thanks
thank you
again,
all.
Lee. Thank you.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
I was discussing the need to just go over the October minutes. Has everybody seen the minutes? And if they have, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. This is Gloria.
I'll second him.
Pete seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Me, Gloria.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to say, I hope everybody has a wonderful and safe holiday.
You too, Joe.
And we all be careful and be mindful of our health, and just be as happy as you possibly can and be at peace. And look forward to our meeting in January. Yeah, I do that too, Pete. Our meeting in January, I think it's January 14th, we have a meeting set up for to go over Robert's rules. That Robert guy's been around a while. We're going to talk about his rules. And then we'll have a year-end meeting sometime in January, February, to go over our what we have, everything. We do at this every year, an annual meeting to discuss our regulations and rules, et cetera, that kind of thing. But that's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
You.
Thank
Merry
you all.
Christmas.
Thank
Y'all
you.
have a Merry
Yeah,
Christmas.
Thanks all. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.